Consistency beats talent. Most people believe success belongs to the talented. They believe the smartest person wins. The most gifted person wins. The person with the perfect opportunities wins. But history proves something completely different. Every day, ordinary people outperform extraordinary talent. Every day, disciplined people defeat gifted people. Every day, consistency quietly defeats brilliance. The truth is simple. Talent can give you a head start, but consistency determines who reaches the finish line. In this audiobook, you'll discover the hidden law that separates dreamers from achievers, starters from finishers, and potential from results. Because success is not built by what you can do occasionally. Success is built by what you do repeatedly. Chapter 1. Talent is overrated. Let's begin with a truth that most people do not want to hear. Talent is overrated, not useless, not meaningless, but overrated. From the time you were a child, you were taught to admire talent. You were taught to look at the star athlete and say, they're naturally gifted. You were taught to look at the successful entrepreneur and say, they have something special. You were taught to look at high achievers and assume they possess abilities that ordinary people simply do not have. And because of that belief, millions of people quietly give up before they even begin. They tell themselves they don't have what it takes. They tell themselves they weren't born with the right gifts. They tell themselves success belongs to somebody else. But that belief is costing them everything, because the truth is much simpler. Talent matters far less than consistency. Read that again in your mind. Talent matters far less than consistency. Most people are looking at the wrong thing. They see the championship trophy. They don't see the thousands of mornings when the athlete woke up before sunrise. They see the successful business. They don't see the years of failure, rejection, and repetition. They see the final result. They don't see the process. That's the key. Most people are obsessed with outcomes. Successful people are obsessed with repetition. Remember this phrase because it will follow you throughout this entire book. You are not seeing the talent. You are seeing the repetition. You are not seeing the talent. You are seeing the repetition. The world celebrates visible success. The world ignores invisible discipline. And that is why so many people misunderstand greatness. Let's take a simple example. Imagine two people. The first person is naturally talented. Everything comes easily. Learning feels effortless. Progress happens quickly. People praise them constantly. The second person is average. Nothing comes naturally. They struggle. They make mistakes. They progress slowly. Now ask yourself this question. Who has a better chance of succeeding 10 years from now? Most people immediately choose the talented person, but real life tells a different story, because the talented person often develops a dangerous habit. They begin to rely on talent. They begin to expect easy victories. They begin to believe effort is optional, and the moment life becomes difficult, they become frustrated. The moment competition increases, they become discouraged. The moment results slow down, they lose motivation. Then they quit, not because they lacked ability, because they lacked consistency. Meanwhile, the average person develops something far more valuable: discipline. The average person learns patience. The average person learns persistence. The average person learns how to continue when success is nowhere in sight, and those skills become unstoppable over time. That's the key. Talent may create a fast start. Consistency creates a strong finish. You have a choice. You can spend your life wishing you had more talent, or you can develop the habit that defeats talent every day: consistency. Think about sports. Every coach in the world has seen this story. The most talented player on the team often doesn't become the most successful player. Why? Because talent creates comfort. Comfort creates complacency. Complacency destroys growth. Meanwhile, another player keeps practicing, keeps improving, keeps showing up, keeps doing the boring work, day after day, week after week, year after year. Eventually, the gap closes. Then, something remarkable happens. The disciplined player pulls ahead, not because they suddenly became more talented, because consistency compounded. That's what people fail to understand. Consistency is not dramatic. Consistency is not exciting. Consistency rarely gets applause. But consistency compounds. And anything that compounds becomes powerful. A single workout changes very little. 1,000 workouts change everything. 1 day of practice means almost nothing. 5 years of practice changes your entire future. One disciplined decision seems insignificant. Thousands of disciplined decisions create extraordinary success. You are not seeing the talent, you are seeing the repetition. Never forget that. Now let's move beyond sports. Look at business. Many entrepreneurs start with brilliant ideas. Many entrepreneurs are intelligent. Many entrepreneurs are creative. But most businesses fail. Why? Because ideas are not enough. Intelligence is not enough. Talent is not enough. Execution wins. Consistency wins. The entrepreneur who keeps improving eventually beats the entrepreneur who keeps planning. The entrepreneur who keeps learning eventually beats the entrepreneur who believes they already know everything. The entrepreneur who shows up every day eventually beats the entrepreneur who only works when inspiration arrives. It's not about talent, it's about discipline. That sentence alone can change your life. It's not about talent, it's about discipline. It's not about giftedness, it's about repetition. It's not about potential, it's about consistency. You have a choice. Every single day you have a choice. You can admire successful people, or you can imitate the habits that made them successful. Most people choose admiration. Very few choose imitation. That is why success remains rare. People love studying winners. They hate copying their routines. People love hearing success stories. They hate living the process. But the process is everything. The process is where greatness is built. The process is where confidence is built. The process is where results are built. And the process is available to everyone. You don't need their permission. You don't need perfect genetics. You don't need ideal circumstances. You don't need extraordinary talent. You need consistency. That's it. Consistency. The willingness to continue when others stop. The willingness to work when others wait. The willingness to repeat simple actions long enough for results to appear. That is the hidden advantage. That is the secret most people miss. And that is why ordinary people often achieve extraordinary success. Not because they were gifted, because they refused to quit. The world is full of talented people who never fulfilled their potential. The world is also full of ordinary people who built extraordinary lives through discipline. Which group will you belong to? You have a choice. You can continue worshipping talent, or you can start building consistency. One creates excuses. The other creates results. One depends on circumstances. The other depends on decisions. One fades under pressure. The other grows stronger with repetition. That's the key. The people you admire are not separated from you by talent alone. They are separated from you by habits. And habits can be learned. Habits can be built. Habits can be repeated. That means success is far more accessible than most people realize. So stop asking whether you are talented enough. Start asking whether you are consistent enough. Because talent may open the door, but consistency walks through it. Talent may get attention, but consistency earns respect. Talent may start the race, but consistency wins it. You are not seeing the talent, you are seeing the repetition. And once you understand that truth, you stop waiting for advantages and start building momentum. You stop wishing for gifts and start creating results. You stop focusing on what you were given and start focusing on what you can control. That is where transformation begins. That is where success begins. And that is where this journey truly starts. You now understand why talent is overrated. But knowing that consistency matters is not enough. The next challenge is even bigger, because what happens when you know what to do, but you don't feel like doing it? That's where most people fail, and that's exactly where winners separate themselves from everyone else. Chapter 2. Show up when you don't feel like it. There is a lie that destroys more dreams than failure ever could. The lie is simple. I'll do it when I feel motivated. Most people never say those exact words, but they live by them every day. They wait until they feel inspired. They wait until they feel confident. They wait until they feel energized. They wait until they feel ready. And while they wait, life moves on without them. Goals remain unfinished. Dreams remain distant. Potential remains unused. Because feelings are unreliable. That's the key. Feelings are unreliable. One day you feel unstoppable. The next day you feel exhausted. One morning you're excited about your future. The next morning you're full of doubt. One week you're focused. The next week you're distracted. Feelings change. Circumstances change. Energy changes. But success demands something stronger. Success demands consistency. The people who build extraordinary lives understand a truth that most people never learn. You cannot build a successful life based on temporary emotions. You must build it on permanent habits. Think about it. If a professional athlete only trained when they felt motivated, they would never become elite. If a successful entrepreneur only worked when inspiration arrived, their business would collapse. If a writer only wrote when creativity appeared, they would never finish a book. The people who succeed are not people who always feel like working. They are people who work anyway. Read that again in your mind. They work anyway. That's the difference. Not intelligence, not talent, not luck. Discipline. The willingness to act despite your emotions. The willingness to continue despite your excuses. The willingness to move despite your resistance. That is where real power comes from. And this brings us to one of the most important lessons in this entire audiobook. The day you don't feel like doing it is the day that matters most. Remember that phrase. The day you don't feel like doing it is the day that matters most. Not the easy day. Not the exciting day. Not the day when motivation is overflowing. The difficult day matters most. Why? Because easy days prove nothing. Anyone can work when they feel good. Anyone can stay focused when everything is going well. Anyone can chase goals when progress is visible. But what happens when progress disappears? What happens when results slow down? What happens when life becomes stressful? What happens when you're tired? That is where your future is decided. You have a choice. You can obey your feelings, or you can obey your commitment. Most people obey their feelings. Winners obey their commitments. That's the key. Commitment must become stronger than emotion. Otherwise, your life becomes a prisoner of your mood. And moods are terrible leaders. Imagine waking up tomorrow feeling completely unmotivated. No excitement, no energy, no inspiration. Most people immediately give themselves permission to stop. They say they'll start again tomorrow. They say they'll wait until they feel better. They say they'll get serious next week, but tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next month. And next month becomes another year of excuses. The pattern repeats endlessly. Not because they lack ability, because they trust their feelings too much. You must stop doing that. You must stop negotiating with your emotions. You must stop asking yourself whether you feel like doing the work. Instead, ask a different question. What did I commit to doing today? That's the question that changes lives, because commitment creates action. Action creates momentum. Momentum creates motivation. Most people think motivation comes first. They are wrong. Action comes first. Motivation follows action. That's how it works in the real world. You take the first step, then energy appears. You begin the workout. Then momentum appears. You start the project. Then focus appears. You start moving. Then motivation catches up. That's the key. Action creates motivation. Motivation rarely creates action. This is why successful people seem different. They are not waiting for motivation. They are creating it. Every time they take action, they build momentum. Every time they build momentum, they strengthen discipline. Every time they strengthen discipline, success becomes more likely. You can do the same thing. You don't need their permission. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need endless confidence. You simply need to begin. One step, one action, one decision. That's all. Let's make this practical. Suppose your goal is fitness. You wake up exhausted. You don't feel like exercising. What should you do? Show up anyway. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not at full intensity, but show up. Take the walk. Complete the workout. Keep the promise. Why? Because consistency matters more than perfection. Suppose your goal is building a business. You feel discouraged. Sales are slow. Progress is invisible. What should you do? Show up anyway. Make the call. Send the email. Create the content. Take the next step. Because progress often arrives after persistence, not before. Suppose your goal is learning a skill. You feel frustrated. Improvement seems slow. You question yourself. What should you do? Show up anyway. Practice. Study. Repeat. Because mastery belongs to people who continue long enough to earn it. The day you don't feel like doing it is the day that matters most. That sentence is worth carrying with you every day, because those difficult days are not obstacles. They are opportunities. They are opportunities to prove who you are becoming. Anyone can perform when conditions are perfect. Champions perform when conditions are imperfect. Anyone can chase goals when motivation is high. Leaders continue when motivation disappears. It's not about emotion. It's about discipline. It's not about excitement. It's about commitment. It's not about how you feel. It's about what you do. That is the difference between dreamers and achievers. Dreamers wait for the perfect feeling. Achievers create results regardless of feeling. You have a choice every single day. You can listen to your excuses, or you can listen to your commitments. You can obey your mood, or you can obey your mission. You can wait for motivation, or you can create momentum. The decision belongs to you, and understand this. Every time you act when you don't feel like it, you become stronger. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your confidence grows. Every time you refuse to quit, your identity changes. You stop becoming someone who talks. You become someone who does. And that transformation changes everything. Because success is not built on your best days. Success is built on your worst days. Success is built on the days when you wanted to quit, but didn't. Success is built on the days when you felt tired, but continued. Success is built on the days when nobody was watching and you showed up anyway. That's the key. The day you don't feel like doing it is the day that matters most. Never forget that, because consistency is not tested when things are easy. Consistency is tested when things are difficult. And if you can win those days, you can win your future. You now understand why feelings cannot be trusted and why action must come before motivation. But there is another trap waiting for most people. They believe success requires massive effort, dramatic changes, and heroic actions. That belief causes them to burn out before they ever build momentum. The truth is much simpler and much more powerful. In the next chapter, you'll discover why small actions repeated daily can create extraordinary results. Chapter 3: Small actions create massive results. Most people underestimate what they can achieve in 5 years, and at the same time, they overestimate what they can achieve in 5 days. That single mistake destroys more goals than lack of talent ever could. People want dramatic results. They want immediate transformation. They want success to happen quickly. They want proof that their effort is working. Right now, today, this week. And when that proof doesn't appear, they quit. They abandon the habit. They abandon the goal. They abandon the process, not because the process failed, because they misunderstood how success works. Success is rarely explosive. Success is usually invisible, at least in the beginning. That's the key. The greatest results often come from actions that seem insignificant in the moment. A single workout does not transform your body. A single book does not transform your mind. A single dollar saved does not create wealth. A single business decision does not build an empire. But thousands of those actions repeated over time. That changes everything. This is the hidden power of consistency. This is the power of compounding. And most people never stay in the game long enough to experience it. Remember this phrase: small daily wins become life-changing victories. Say it again in your mind. Small daily wins become life-changing victories. The world celebrates big moments: the promotion, the championship, the successful company, the financial breakthrough. But those moments are merely the visible result of years of invisible effort. People see the harvest. They don't see the planting. People see the outcome. They don't see the repetition. You have a choice. You can continue chasing quick results, or you can start building lasting results. One approach creates frustration. The other creates transformation. Let's talk about fitness. Imagine 2 people. The first person becomes inspired. They decide to change their life overnight. They spend 3 hours in the gym. They follow an extreme diet. They try to transform everything immediately. For a few days, they feel unstoppable. Then reality arrives. The routine becomes exhausting. The discipline becomes difficult. The motivation disappears, and eventually they quit. Now imagine another person. They commit to 20 minutes of exercise per day. Nothing dramatic, nothing impressive, just 20 minutes. Day after day, week after week, month after month. Who wins? The answer is obvious. The second person wins. Not because they worked harder, because they stayed longer. That's the key. Consistency beats intensity when intensity cannot be sustained. A small action repeated for years is stronger than a massive action repeated for days. Remember that. Now let's talk about money. Most people think wealth comes from huge financial opportunities. Sometimes it does, but more often, wealth comes from consistent decisions. A person saves a small amount each week. They invest consistently. They remain patient. Nothing exciting happens at first. In fact, the progress feels painfully slow. Months pass. Years pass. Then something remarkable happens. Growth accelerates. The results begin to multiply. And suddenly, what once looked insignificant becomes substantial. Not because of luck, not because of talent, because consistency was allowed to compound. That's how wealth is built. one decision at a time, one habit at a time, one day at a time. Small daily wins become life-changing victories. The same principle applies to learning. Imagine reading 10 pages a day. 10 pages. Most people would call that insignificant. Most people would say it isn't enough. But let's do the math. 10 pages a day becomes 300 pages a month. Thousands of pages every year. Dozens of books, thousands of ideas, thousands of lessons, thousands of opportunities to improve. The person who reads 10 pages every day eventually becomes unrecognizable from the person who never reads at all. Not because of intelligence, because of consistency. It's not about talent, it's about discipline. It's not about brilliance, it's about repetition. That's the key. Now, let's talk about business. People often look at successful companies and assume they appeared overnight. But success rarely works that way. Most businesses grow through small improvements. One better product, one better conversation, one better decision, one better customer experience, repeated again and again. The improvements seem tiny, almost invisible, but eventually they compound into extraordinary results. The same is true for your life. Every decision matters. Every habit matters. Every action matters. Not because each action is powerful by itself, because actions accumulate, they stack, they compound, and eventually they become your reality. This is why you must stop dismissing small actions. Stop saying, it's only one workout. Stop saying, it's only one chapter. Stop saying, it's only one day. That thinking is dangerous, because success is built from individual days. Success is built from individual decisions. Success is built from individual actions. Ignore the small things, and you eventually lose the big things. Master the small things, and the big things take care of themselves. That's the key. Most people fail because they are obsessed with outcomes. Successful people focus on inputs. They focus on today's actions, today's habits, today's discipline. They trust the process, even when results are invisible. Especially when results are invisible. You have a choice. You can demand immediate rewards, or you can trust the compound effect. One creates impatience, the other creates progress. One creates disappointment, the other creates mastery. Think about a tree. When you plant a seed, nothing appears immediately. Days pass, nothing. Weeks pass, still nothing. To an impatient person, it looks like failure. But underground, growth is happening. Roots are developing. Strength is forming. The foundation is being built. And then one day, visible growth appears. The same thing happens in your life. The same thing happens with habits. The same thing happens with success. Growth is often happening long before you can see it. That's why quitting too early is such a tragedy. People abandon the process right before the results arrive. They stop watering the seed, they stop showing up, they stop believing, and they never discover what could have happened. Don't make that mistake. Keep going. Keep repeating. Keep building. Even when progress feels slow. Even when results seem invisible. Even when nobody notices. Because consistency is always working. Even when you can't see it. The workout is working. The practice is working. The reading is working. The saving is working. The discipline is working. Trust the process. Trust the repetition. Trust the compound effect. Small daily wins become life-changing victories. That phrase is more than motivation. It is reality. Every extraordinary achievement is built from ordinary actions repeated long enough. Every remarkable life is built from simple habits repeated consistently. Every success story is built one day at a time. You don't need their permission. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need massive action. You need consistent action. That is what creates momentum. That is what creates mastery. That is what creates transformation. And that is what creates extraordinary success. The people who succeed are not always the smartest. They are not always the most talented. They are simply the people who refuse to underestimate small actions. They understand that today's effort becomes tomorrow's advantage. Today's habit becomes tomorrow's identity. Today's discipline becomes tomorrow's success. That's the key. Small daily wins become life-changing victories. Never forget it, because the future you want is not built in a single breakthrough moment. It is built through thousands of seemingly ordinary actions. And once you understand that, another danger appears. Many people finally discover the power of consistency, but then they sabotage themselves by chasing extreme effort. They believe bigger must be better. They believe more must be better. And that belief often leads to burnout. In the next chapter, you'll discover why sustainable consistency always defeats unsustainable intensity. Chapter 4. Stop chasing intensity. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that success requires extreme effort. They think they need to work harder, push harder, sacrifice more, go all in. And for a few days, they do exactly that. They wake up before sunrise. They work until midnight. They attack their goals with incredible energy. They feel unstoppable. They feel committed. They feel productive. But then something happens. They get tired. They become overwhelmed. They lose momentum. And suddenly, they disappear. Days turn into weeks. Weeks turn into months. The habit is gone. The goal is forgotten. The progress stops. This is the cycle that traps millions of people. They mistake intensity for progress. That's the key. Intensity feels productive. Consistency actually is productive. There is a huge difference. Most people are addicted to intensity because intensity creates excitement. It creates emotion. It creates the feeling that something important is happening. But feelings can be deceptive. You already learned that in the previous chapter. The truth is that success rarely comes from dramatic bursts of effort. Success comes from sustainable effort, repeated effort, consistent effort. That's why you must stop chasing intensity. Because intensity without consistency is worthless. Read that again. Intensity without consistency is worthless. A week of extreme effort cannot compete with a year of steady discipline. A month of obsession cannot compete with 5 years of consistency. A burst of motivation cannot compete with a habit. Consistency beats intensity every single time. Remember that phrase. Consistency beats intensity every single time. Let's talk about fitness. This is where the lesson becomes obvious. Every January, gyms become crowded. People arrive with enormous enthusiasm. They create impossible workout plans. They promise themselves they will exercise 7 days a week. They completely transform their schedule overnight. For a short time, it feels incredible. Then reality arrives. The routine becomes exhausting. The schedule becomes difficult. The excitement fades, and most of them disappear. Not because the goal was impossible, because the approach was unsustainable. Now compare that person to someone who exercises 30 minutes a day. Nothing extreme, nothing dramatic, nothing impressive, just 30 minutes, day after day, month after month, year after year. Who wins? The answer is obvious. The person who stays. That's the key. Success belongs to the person who stays, not the person who starts strongest, the person who stays longest. You have a choice. You can build a routine that impresses people, or you can build a routine that survives. One creates attention, the other creates results, and results are what matter. The same principle applies to business. Many entrepreneurs start with enormous energy. They work 18-hour days. They try to do everything at once. They sprint towards success. But eventually, they burn out. Why? Because human beings are not machines. You cannot operate at maximum intensity forever. No one can. The entrepreneur who survives is usually not the entrepreneur who works hardest for a week. It's the entrepreneur who continues working for years. The entrepreneur who builds systems. The entrepreneur who creates sustainable habits. The entrepreneur who understands a simple truth. Consistency beats intensity every single time. Now, let's bring this closer to home. Think about your own goals. Maybe you want to improve your health. Maybe you want to build a business. Maybe you want to learn a skill. Maybe you want financial freedom. Ask yourself an honest question. Have you been chasing intensity? Have you been creating plans that look impressive but cannot last? Have you been demanding perfection from yourself? Because perfection is often the enemy of consistency. Most people fail because they create goals for their ideal self, not their real self. That's the problem. They build routines based on motivation, not reality. And when motivation disappears, the routine collapses. You must stop doing that. Build habits that can survive your worst days, not just your best days. That's the key. A habit is only useful if you can repeat it. A routine is only valuable if you can sustain it. A goal is only meaningful if you continue pursuing it. You don't need their permission. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need an extreme transformation. You need a repeatable process. That's what creates results. Imagine two writers. The first writer waits for inspiration. When inspiration arrives, they write 10,000 words. Then they disappear for weeks. The second writer writes 500 words every day, no matter what. No excuses. No drama. Who finishes more books? Who develops more skill? Who creates more opportunities? The answer is obvious. The second writer wins. Not because they were more talented, because they were more consistent. Consistency beats intensity every single time. This principle works everywhere. Relationships, health, business, learning, money. Every meaningful achievement is built through repetition, not occasional heroics. Repetition. And repetition requires sustainability. This means you must stop asking, "How much can I do today?" Instead ask, "What can I do every day?" That question changes everything, because sustainable action compounds. Extreme action burns out. You have a choice. You can continue chasing temporary excitement, or you can start building permanent habits. One creates emotional highs. The other creates lasting success. One looks impressive. The other actually works. And remember this: the people you admire are rarely operating at maximum intensity every day. What you're seeing is consistency. You're seeing systems. You're seeing routines. You're seeing years of repetition. The world loves dramatic stories, but success is usually boring. Success is usually repetitive. Success is usually built through ordinary actions, repeated for extraordinary lengths of time. That's the key. The ability to continue. The ability to repeat. The ability to stay. Not for a week. Not for a month. For years. That is where greatness lives. It's not about excitement. It's about discipline. It's not about intensity. It's about consistency. It's not about doing more. It's about continuing longer. Understand that, and your entire approach to success changes. You stop trying to sprint. You start preparing for a marathon. You stop chasing motivation. You start building systems. You stop demanding perfection. You start valuing repetition. And suddenly, progress becomes possible, because the pressure disappears. You no longer need to be extraordinary today. You simply need to show up today, then show up tomorrow, then show up again. That's how success is built. One day, one habit, one repetition at a time. Consistency beats intensity every single time. Never forget it. The greatest achievements are not created by occasional bursts of effort. They are created by sustainable actions repeated relentlessly. That is the hidden advantage available to everyone. And once you understand this principle, another question naturally appears. If consistency matters so much, how do you make consistency automatic? How do you keep showing up even when life becomes chaotic? How do you reduce the need for willpower? The answer lies in systems, because successful people do not rely on motivation. They rely on structure, and that is exactly what we will explore next. Chapter 5. Build systems, not excuses. Most people are trying to succeed with willpower. That is the problem. They wake up every morning and hope they will make the right decisions. They hope they will feel motivated. They hope they will stay disciplined. They hope they will resist distractions. They hope they will follow through. And hope is not a strategy. That's the key. Hope is not a strategy. Successful people understand something different. They do not rely on willpower. They rely on systems, and systems are what separate consistent people from inconsistent people. Think about it. Every day you make hundreds of decisions. What to eat, what to watch, what to focus on, what to avoid, whether to work, whether to procrastinate, whether to exercise, whether to stay committed. Each decision drains energy. Each decision creates friction. And eventually, decision fatigue takes over. That is why relying on willpower is dangerous, because willpower is limited. Willpower gets tired. Willpower gets distracted. Willpower weakens under pressure. But a good system keeps working. Even when you don't feel like it. Even when you're tired. Even when motivation disappears. Remember this phrase: your system is stronger than your willpower. Say it again. Your system is stronger than your willpower. Most people try to force discipline. Successful people design discipline. That's the difference. One approach depends on emotion. The other depends on structure. You have a choice. You can continue depending on motivation, or you can start building systems. One creates inconsistency. The other creates results. Let's begin with routines. The power of a routine is simple. It removes decisions. When something becomes automatic, resistance decreases. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't negotiate with yourself. You don't debate whether you feel motivated. You simply do it. Why? Because it has become part of your system. Now imagine applying that same principle to your goals. Imagine exercising at the same time every day. Imagine reading at the same time every day. Imagine working on your business at the same time every day. Suddenly, discipline becomes easier, because the decision has already been made. That's the key. The fewer decisions you make, the more consistent you become. This is why routines matter. Not because they are exciting, because they eliminate friction. And friction is the enemy of consistency. Now let's talk about schedules. Most people treat their goals like hobbies. They work on them when they have extra time, when they feel inspired, when life becomes convenient. The problem is that life rarely becomes convenient. There is always another distraction, another obligation, another excuse. That's why successful people schedule their priorities. They don't leave important habits to chance. They assign them a place on the calendar, a time, a structure, a commitment. Because what gets scheduled gets done, and what gets left to chance usually gets ignored. You don't need their permission. You don't need perfect circumstances. You need a plan that removes uncertainty. That's what a schedule does. It tells your brain exactly what happens next. And clarity creates action. Now let's talk about something even more powerful: environment. Most people underestimate the influence of their surroundings. They think success is about internal strength, but often success is about external design. Let's say you want to eat healthier, yet your kitchen is filled with junk food. Every day you face temptation. Every day you fight the same battle. Eventually, your willpower loses. Not because you're weak, because your environment is working against you. Now imagine removing the temptation. Imagine filling your environment with better choices. Suddenly, discipline becomes easier. Not because you changed yourself, because you changed your environment. That's the key. Your environment shapes your behavior, far more than you realize. Want to read more? Keep books visible. Want to exercise more? Lay out your workout clothes the night before. Want to spend less time on social media? Remove the apps. Create barriers. Create friction for bad habits. Create convenience for good habits. Design your environment to support your goals. Do not expect your goals to survive in an environment built for failure. Your system is stronger than your willpower. Never forget that. Now let's discuss habit stacking. This is one of the simplest ways to build consistency. Instead of creating a completely new routine, attach a new habit to an existing one. For example, after brushing your teeth, read 10 pages. After drinking your morning coffee, review your goals. After finishing lunch, take a 10-minute walk. The existing habit becomes the trigger. The new habit becomes automatic. That's the key. Success becomes easier when you connect behaviors together. You stop relying on memory. You stop relying on motivation. You start relying on systems, and systems are reliable. Think about the most successful people you know. They are not constantly deciding whether to be disciplined. They have systems. Systems for productivity, systems for health, systems for finances, systems for learning, systems for growth. That is why they continue moving forward while others remain stuck. The average person depends on mood. The successful person depends on structure. It's not about motivation. It's about discipline. It's not about inspiration. It's about systems. It's not about hoping. It's about designing. That is the shift you must make. You have a choice. You can continue fighting the same battles every day, or you can build systems that make those battles unnecessary. One creates exhaustion. The other creates momentum. One requires constant effort. The other creates automatic progress. Imagine two people. One person wakes up every morning and decides whether they should work toward their goals. The other person follows a routine. Which person will remain consistent? The answer is obvious. The second person wins. Not because they have stronger willpower, because they have a stronger system. Your system is stronger than your willpower. That truth applies everywhere. Health, money, relationships, business, learning. Every meaningful goal becomes easier when supported by structure, and harder when dependent on emotion. So stop asking yourself how to become more motivated. Ask yourself a better question. How can I make success automatic? How can I remove friction? How can I simplify action? How can I design my environment? How can I create systems that work even when motivation disappears? Those are the questions that change lives. Because success is not built through occasional acts of discipline. Success is built through repeatable systems. Systems create habits. Habits create consistency. Consistency creates results. And results create the life you want. That's the key. The people who succeed are not necessarily more determined. They are often more organized, more structured, more intentional. They understand that discipline is easier when supported by a system, and they build their lives accordingly. You can do the same. You don't need extraordinary talent. You don't need extraordinary luck. You need extraordinary consistency. And consistency becomes possible when systems do the heavy lifting. Your system is stronger than your willpower. Remember that. Because the future you want is not created by making the right decision once. It is created by making the right decision repeatedly. And systems make repetition possible. But there is another challenge waiting ahead. Even with great systems, many people still struggle. Why? Because they start everything and finish nothing. They chase new goals, new opportunities, new distractions, and they never develop the habit that truly separates winners from everyone else. The habit of finishing. Chapter 6. Become the person who finishes. Most people love beginnings. Very few people love endings. That is why so many dreams remain unfinished. People love the excitement of a new goal. They love the energy of a fresh start. They love the feeling that this time will be different. A new business, a new habit, a new workout plan, a new project, a new version of themselves. The beginning feels exciting. The beginning feels hopeful. The beginning feels easy. But then something happens. The novelty fades. The excitement disappears. The work becomes repetitive. The results slow down. And suddenly, the goal is no longer interesting. This is where most people quit. Not because they lack ability, not because they lack opportunity, because they never learned how to finish. That's the key. Success is not built by starting. Success is built by finishing. Look around. The world is filled with unfinished dreams, unfinished books, unfinished businesses, unfinished goals, unfinished promises, unfinished potential. Everywhere you look, people are starting. Very few are finishing. And that is exactly why finishing has become a superpower. Remember this phrase: winners finish, losers restart. Say it again: winners finish, losers restart. That statement may sound harsh, but it contains a powerful truth. Many people spend their lives restarting. Every Monday they restart. Every month they restart. Every year they restart. They are constantly beginning, but they rarely complete anything meaningful. They mistake movement for progress. They mistake planning for execution. They mistake starting for succeeding. But starting alone changes nothing. Finishing changes everything. You have a choice. You can become addicted to beginnings, or you can become committed to completion. One creates frustration. The other creates transformation. Think about confidence. Most people believe confidence comes first. They think confident people take action. But real confidence is built differently. Confidence comes from evidence. Confidence comes from proof. Confidence comes from keeping promises to yourself. And nothing creates proof like finishing. When you finish something, you tell your mind a powerful story. You tell yourself, I follow through. You tell yourself, I complete what I start. You tell yourself, I can be trusted. That is where confidence comes from. Not positive thinking, not motivational speeches. Completion. That's the key. Finishing creates confidence. Confidence creates momentum. Momentum creates success. This is why every unfinished project carries a hidden cost. It teaches your mind the wrong lesson. It teaches you that quitting is acceptable. It teaches you that promises are optional. It teaches you that discomfort is a reason to stop. And those lessons become habits. Dangerous habits. Habits that quietly destroy potential. You must break that pattern. You must become the person who finishes, even when it becomes boring, even when it becomes difficult, even when nobody notices. Because that is where your identity is formed. Not on the easy days, on the difficult days. Let's talk about a common mistake. Many people believe they need a better goal. They think their problem is the project, the business, the routine, the strategy. So they abandon what they started and chase something new, again, and again, and again. But the problem is rarely the goal. The problem is the habit of quitting. That's the key. The person who quits one project will usually quit the next one too. Because the issue is not external, the issue is internal. It is a pattern of escape, a pattern of distraction, a pattern of abandoning effort when discomfort arrives. You have a choice. You can continue chasing new opportunities, or you can develop the discipline to finish existing opportunities. One creates endless beginnings. The other creates results. Remember this: every meaningful goal eventually becomes difficult. Every meaningful goal eventually becomes repetitive. Every meaningful goal eventually loses its excitement. That is normal. That is expected. That is part of the process. The mistake is believing something is wrong when the excitement disappears. Nothing is wrong. You have simply reached the stage where discipline becomes necessary, and discipline is where winners are created. Winners finish. Losers restart. Think about learning a skill. The beginner stage is exciting. You see progress quickly. Everything feels new, but eventually, improvement slows. The gains become smaller. The process becomes repetitive. Most people quit here, not because they cannot succeed, because they refuse to stay long enough. The people who become exceptional are not always the most talented. They are the people who survive the boring middle. They finish. That's the key. The boring middle is where greatness is built. The boring middle is where consistency proves itself. The boring middle is where most competitors disappear. And every person who disappears creates more opportunity for those who remain. This applies to business too. Many entrepreneurs love launching. They love brainstorming. They love new ideas. But businesses are built through execution, through follow-through, through completion. The entrepreneur who finishes projects usually defeats the entrepreneur who constantly starts new ones, not because they are smarter, because they are more reliable, more disciplined, more consistent. And consistency compounds. The same is true in your personal life. If you say you will exercise, finish the workout. If you say you will read the book, finish the book. If you say you will complete the project, finish the project. Train yourself to follow through. Train yourself to complete. Train yourself to finish, because every completed task strengthens your identity. Every completion becomes evidence. Evidence creates confidence. Confidence creates momentum. Momentum creates success. That's the key. Now, this does not mean every goal must continue forever. Sometimes adjustment is necessary. Sometimes strategy must change. Sometimes priorities evolve. But there is a difference between intelligent adjustment and emotional quitting. One is strategic. The other is reactive. One moves you forward. The other keeps you stuck. Learn the difference and choose wisely. You don't need their permission. You don't need constant motivation. You don't need perfect circumstances. You need the discipline to finish. That discipline will separate you from the majority, because most people are comfortable starting. Very few are committed to completing, and the rewards belong to those who complete. You have a choice. Become another person who restarts every year, or become the person who follows through. Become the person who stays. Become the person who finishes. Because finishing is not just a skill, it is an identity that transforms every area of life. The person who finishes gains confidence. The person who finishes gains momentum. The person who finishes gains opportunities. The person who finishes gains trust. Most importantly, the person who finishes gains results. Winners finish, losers restart. Never forget that, because success is not reserved for those who begin with the most talent. Success belongs to those who remain committed long enough to complete the journey. And once you become the kind of person who finishes, you discover another powerful truth. The things that create extraordinary success are rarely exciting. They are often repetitive, predictable, even boring. Yet hidden inside that boredom is a level of power most people never access. In the next chapter, you'll discover why mastering repetition is one of the greatest competitive advantages in the world. Chapter 7. Master the boring repetition. Most people are looking for a secret, a shortcut, a breakthrough, a hidden strategy that will make success easier. They search for new methods, new hacks, new opportunities, new answers. But the truth is much less exciting and much more powerful. The secret is repetition. The secret is doing the same important things over and over again. The secret is mastering the fundamentals. Day after day, month after month, year after year. That is where greatness lives. Not in novelty, not in excitement, not in constant change. In repetition. That's the key. Greatness is hidden inside activities that most people consider boring. And that is exactly why most people never become great, because they are addicted to stimulation. They crave excitement. They crave variety. They crave entertainment. The moment something becomes repetitive, they lose interest. The moment something becomes predictable, they move on. The moment something becomes boring, they quit. And every time they quit, they start over. Again, and again, and again. Meanwhile, successful people are doing something completely different. They are repeating. They are practicing. They are refining. They are improving. While everyone else is chasing novelty, they are mastering the fundamentals. Remember this phrase: what is boring to others becomes success to you. Say it again. What is boring to others becomes success to you. That sentence can change your life, because once you understand it, you stop running from repetition. You start embracing it. Think about elite athletes. When people watch a champion perform, they see something extraordinary. They see speed, strength, skill, precision. What they do not see are the thousands of repetitions that created those abilities. The same drills, the same exercises, the same movements, repeated endlessly. Most people would find it boring. Champions call it preparation. That's the key. Masters fall in love with repetition. Amateurs fall in love with results. The amateur wants the trophy. The master wants the process. The amateur wants recognition. The master wants improvement. The amateur becomes bored. The master becomes better. You have a choice. You can chase excitement, or you can chase mastery. One creates temporary motivation. The other creates lasting success. Let's look at musicians. People hear a beautiful performance and assume talent is responsible. Talent may help, but talent is not enough. The musician practices scales again and again. The same notes, the same patterns, the same exercises, thousands of times. Not because it's exciting, because it's effective. The fundamentals never stop mattering. That's the lesson. The basics never become less important. In fact, the higher you rise, the more important the basics become. The greatest performers in the world are often obsessed with fundamentals. Why? Because they understand something that most people ignore. Mastery is not built on complexity. Mastery is built on repetition. It's not about innovation, it's about discipline. It's not about talent, it's about repetition. That's the key. Now think about writers. Many people imagine successful authors waiting for inspiration. They imagine moments of genius, moments of creativity, moments of brilliance. But professional writers know the truth. Writing is often repetitive. Writing is often frustrating. Writing is often boring. And yet they continue. They sit down. They write. They revise. They repeat. Day after day. The people who become great are not necessarily the most creative. They are the most consistent. They are willing to do the boring work. What is boring to others becomes success to you. Never forget that. The same principle applies to business. Successful leaders spend years doing things that seem ordinary. Following up, improving systems, serving customers, training teams, reviewing numbers, making small improvements. The work is rarely glamorous. The work is rarely exciting, but the work compounds, and over time, those small improvements create massive advantages. Most people underestimate the power of repetition because repetition feels slow. That's the problem. People want dramatic change. They want immediate progress. They want visible results. But repetition works differently. Repetition builds skill. Repetition builds confidence. Repetition builds mastery. Quietly, gradually, almost invisibly. Then one day, the results become impossible to ignore. That's the key. Success often arrives suddenly after years of repetition. To the outside world, it looks like an overnight success. But you know better. You know what really happened. Years of practice, years of consistency, years of boring repetition. The breakthrough was simply the visible result. Now, let's make this personal. Look at your own life. Where are you avoiding repetition? Where are you chasing excitement instead of mastery? Where are you abandoning the fundamentals? Be honest, because your future is hidden inside that answer. Maybe you keep searching for a new workout plan instead of following one plan consistently. Maybe you keep looking for a new business idea instead of improving your current one. Maybe you keep consuming information instead of applying what you already know. Those habits create motion, but they do not create progress. Progress requires repetition. You have a choice. You can continue searching for something new, or you can commit to what already works. One creates distraction. The other creates results. One keeps you busy. The other makes you better. That's the key. The basics work. The fundamentals work. The problem is not that people don't know what to do. The problem is that they stop doing it. They stop because it becomes repetitive. They stop because it becomes boring. They stop because they want excitement. And in doing so, they abandon the very process that would have made them successful. Do not make that mistake. Learn to respect repetition. Learn to appreciate repetition. Learn to embrace repetition, because repetition is where confidence is built. Repetition is where discipline is built. Repetition is where greatness is built. You don't need their permission. You don't need a revolutionary strategy. You don't need constant excitement. You need consistency. And consistency requires repetition. The people who achieve extraordinary results are not always extraordinary people. They are often ordinary people who mastered ordinary actions. They simply stayed with the fundamentals longer than everyone else. That is the hidden advantage. That is the competitive edge. The willingness to keep doing what works long after the excitement disappears. What is boring to others becomes success to you. Make that your standard. Make that your mindset. Make that your identity. Because once you stop running from repetition, everything changes. You become more focused, more disciplined, more effective, more consistent. And consistency is what this entire audiobook is about. The ability to keep going. The ability to keep repeating. The ability to keep improving. Even when the process feels ordinary. Especially when the process feels ordinary. That's the key. The fundamentals are enough. The repetition is enough. The consistency is enough. Trust the process. Stay with the basics. Master the boring repetition. Because the future belongs to those who can do the ordinary things long enough to achieve extraordinary results. But there is still one more challenge that causes many people to quit, even after they build discipline, even after they master repetition, even after they create momentum. They become discouraged because results take longer than expected, and impatience becomes the enemy. In the next chapter, you'll discover why delayed rewards are not a sign of failure, and why the people who win are often the people who stay patient the longest. Chapter 8. Ignore the need for immediate results. One of the biggest reasons people fail has nothing to do with talent, nothing to do with intelligence, nothing to do with opportunity. It has everything to do with impatience. People want results too quickly. They want proof. They want evidence. They want visible rewards. And they want them now. That is the trap. Because success rarely operates on your timeline. Success operates on the timeline of consistency. That's the key. The greatest rewards often arrive much later than expected. Most people never experience those rewards because they quit too soon. They work hard for a few weeks, maybe a few months, sometimes even a year. Then they look around and ask the wrong question. Why isn't this working? They don't see dramatic change. They don't see immediate validation. They don't see the outcome they imagined, so they stop. Not because the process failed, because their patience failed. Remember this phrase, keep planting even when you cannot see growth. Say it again, keep planting even when you cannot see growth. That sentence may be one of the most important lessons in this entire audiobook, because the gap between effort and reward is where most dreams die. Think about that. The gap between effort and reward is where most dreams die. People start with excitement. They begin the workout. They launch the business. They learn the skill. They develop the habit. And for a while, everything feels possible. Then reality arrives. The effort continues, but the rewards do not appear, at least not yet. And suddenly doubt enters the picture. Maybe this isn't working. Maybe I'm wasting my time. Maybe I'm not talented enough. Maybe I should quit. Maybe I should try something else. That is the moment that separates winners from everyone else. Not when things are easy, not when progress is obvious, but when effort is required and rewards are invisible. That's the key. Success belongs to people who can survive the invisible phase. The phase where growth is happening but cannot yet be seen. The phase where discipline must replace validation. The phase where faith in the process becomes necessary. You have a choice. You can demand immediate rewards, or you can trust delayed rewards. One creates frustration. The other creates success. Let's talk about fitness. A person exercises for 1 week. Nothing changes. They exercise for 2 weeks. Still nothing dramatic. A month passes. Progress feels slow. The temptation to quit becomes strong. But what they fail to realize is that transformation was never supposed to happen overnight. The body changes gradually, quietly, almost invisibly. The person who continues eventually experiences results. The person who quits never does. The difference is patience, not talent, not genetics. Patience. Keep planting even when you cannot see growth. Now think about money. Many people start saving or investing. At first, the numbers seem insignificant. Progress feels painfully slow. The rewards appear too small. The effort appears too large. So they stop. What they don't understand is that compounding takes time. The early stages always feel disappointing. The early stages always feel invisible. But the people who stay committed eventually experience exponential growth, not because they discovered a secret, because they stayed long enough. That's the key. The reward often arrives after the struggle, not before it. The same principle applies to learning. Imagine reading books every day. The first book changes very little. The second book changes very little. The 10th book changes very little. At least that's how it feels. But over time, something extraordinary happens. Knowledge accumulates. Perspective expands. Thinking improves. Decisions become smarter. Opportunities increase. The growth is real, even when it feels invisible. Most people stop before they experience the compound effect. That is the tragedy. They abandon the process right before it starts working. They quit during the invisible phase. And the invisible phase is where almost every meaningful achievement is born. That's the key. The invisible phase is not proof that nothing is happening. It is proof that the foundation is being built. Think about a seed. When you plant it in the ground, nothing appears immediately. Days pass. Nothing. Weeks pass. Nothing. To an impatient person, it looks like failure. But underneath the surface, roots are growing. Strength is developing. Preparation is happening. Then eventually, growth becomes visible. The same thing happens with success. The same thing happens with discipline. The same thing happens with consistency. Growth often occurs underground before it appears above ground. You must understand that. You must trust that. Otherwise, impatience will destroy your future. You have a choice. You can focus on today's visible results, or you can focus on today's necessary actions. One creates emotional instability. The other creates long-term progress. One depends on outcomes, the other depends on discipline. And discipline is always the safer investment. It's not about validation. It's about consistency. It's not about immediate rewards. It's about delayed rewards. It's not about today's results. It's about tomorrow's reality. That's the key. Many people become addicted to external proof. They need constant evidence that their efforts matter, constant applause, constant recognition, constant progress. But life does not work that way. Many of the most important improvements happen quietly, without attention, without praise, without immediate results. That is why patience is a competitive advantage. Most people cannot wait. Most people need proof too quickly. Most people abandon the process before the process has time to work. You must become different. You must learn to continue without validation. You must learn to trust repetition. You must learn to trust consistency. You must learn to trust the process. Keep planting even when you cannot see growth. That mindset changes everything. Because once you stop demanding immediate rewards, you become dangerous. You become patient, focused, disciplined, resilient. You stop reacting emotionally to short-term setbacks. You stop judging success one day at a time. You stop quitting because progress is slow. Instead, you keep showing up. You keep working. You keep improving. And eventually, the results arrive. Not because of luck, because of consistency. You don't need their permission. You don't need constant encouragement. You don't need immediate proof. You need patience. You need discipline. You need the willingness to continue when rewards are delayed. Because delayed rewards are often the most valuable rewards. The strongest relationships take time. The greatest skills take time. The healthiest bodies take time. The most successful businesses take time. The most meaningful transformations take time. Everything valuable requires patience. That's the key. The people who win are rarely the people who demand the fastest results. They are the people who remain committed the longest. They understand that effort and reward are rarely connected by a straight line. There is a gap, a waiting period, a testing period, and that period determines everything. The gap between effort and reward is where most dreams die. Do not allow yours to die there. Keep planting, keep showing up, keep repeating, keep believing, even when results are invisible. Especially when results are invisible, because consistency does not always pay immediately, but it always pays eventually. And eventually is where extraordinary success lives. Remember that. Keep planting even when you cannot see growth, because the harvest belongs to those who stay. The harvest belongs to those who trust the process. The harvest belongs to those who remain consistent long after everyone else has given up. And once you develop that patience, another challenge appears. Because patience alone is not enough. You must also protect the thing that makes consistency possible in the first place: your attention, your focus, your ability to stay locked in on what matters. In the next chapter, you'll discover why distractions are one of the greatest threats to success, and how protecting your focus can transform your future. Chapter 9. Protect your focus like your future depends on it. There is a war being fought for your attention. Every day, every hour, every minute, and most people are losing. Not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack ambition, not because they lack potential. They are losing because they cannot focus. They are distracted, constantly distracted. And distraction is more dangerous than most people realize, because success requires consistency, and consistency requires concentration. You cannot build momentum if your attention is scattered. You cannot build mastery if your focus is fragmented. You cannot build success if every distraction pulls you away from what matters. That's the key. Focus is not a luxury. Focus is a necessity. The ability to concentrate has become one of the most valuable skills in the modern world. Because while everyone else is distracted, the focused person keeps progressing. While everyone else is scrolling, the focused person is building. While everyone else is reacting, the focused person is creating. And over time, that difference becomes enormous. Remember this phrase: what you focus on grows. Say it again: what you focus on grows. That statement applies to every area of life. Focus on excuses, and excuses multiply. Focus on problems, and problems dominate your thinking. Focus on distractions, and distractions consume your future. But focus on growth, growth expands. Focus on discipline, discipline strengthens. Focus on your goals, progress accelerates. What you focus on grows. That's the key. Now let's talk about one of the greatest enemies of focus: social media. Social media itself is not the problem. The problem is unconscious consumption. Hours disappear. Attention disappears. Energy disappears. People open an app for 5 minutes and lose an hour. Then they wonder why their goals are not moving forward. The answer is simple. Because attention is a resource, and resources spent in one place cannot be spent somewhere else. Every hour spent consuming is an hour not spent creating. Every hour spent scrolling is an hour not spent improving. Every hour spent distracted is an hour not spent building the future you claim to want. You have a choice. You can consume your future, or you can create it. One leads to regret, the other leads to growth, and the choice is made daily, sometimes hourly. What you focus on grows. Now let's discuss comparison. Comparison is another thief of focus. People spend more time watching other people's lives than improving their own. They compare their beginning to someone else's middle. They compare their progress to someone else's results. They compare their reality to someone else's highlight reel, and in doing so, they destroy their momentum. That's the key. Comparison redirects your attention away from the only life you can control: your own. The moment you become obsessed with what someone else is doing, you stop improving what you are doing. And success becomes impossible. Not because you lack ability, because you lack focus. You don't need their permission. You don't need their approval. You don't need their results. You need your own discipline. Focus on your work. Focus on your habits. Focus on your progress, because what you focus on grows. Now let's talk about entertainment addiction. There is nothing wrong with entertainment. The problem begins when entertainment becomes escape, when distraction becomes a lifestyle, when comfort becomes a habit. Many people spend years escaping responsibility, escaping discomfort, escaping effort, escaping growth. Every free moment is filled with stimulation. Videos, notifications, games, scrolling, noise, constant noise. And eventually, they lose the ability to sit quietly and focus deeply. That is dangerous, because every meaningful achievement requires deep work. Every meaningful achievement requires concentration. Every meaningful achievement requires attention. You cannot build a remarkable life while living in a constant state of distraction. That's the key. Your future is built where your attention goes. Think about the most successful people in any field. Athletes, entrepreneurs, writers, artists, leaders. What do they all have in common? Focus. Not perfect focus, not effortless focus, protected focus. They guard their attention. They protect their priorities. They understand that every distraction has a cost, and they refuse to pay that cost unnecessarily. You must do the same. You have a choice. You can protect your attention, or you can surrender it. One creates momentum. The other creates confusion. One creates progress. The other creates stagnation. Now let's make this practical. What should you do? First, eliminate unnecessary distractions. Turn off notifications. Remove distractions from your workspace. Reduce access to things that steal your attention. Create an environment that supports focus. Remember what you learned in the previous chapters. Your environment matters. Your system matters. Design for success. Second, schedule focused work. Do not leave concentration to chance. Decide when you will work. Decide what you will work on. Protect that time aggressively, because if you do not control your schedule, distractions will. Third, stop multitasking. Multitasking feels productive. It is not. It is fragmented attention disguised as productivity. Every time you switch focus, you lose momentum. Every time you lose momentum, progress slows. One task, one focus, one priority. That's the key. Fourth, learn to tolerate boredom. This may be the most important lesson of all. Many people reach for distraction the moment boredom appears, but boredom is not the enemy. Boredom is often the doorway to concentration, the ability to sit with discomfort, the ability to resist stimulation, the ability to stay focused when nothing exciting is happening. That is a superpower, and very few people develop it. What you focus on grows. Remember that. If you focus on distractions, distractions grow. If you focus on discipline, discipline grows. If you focus on meaningful work, meaningful results grow. The principle is simple. The application is difficult, but difficulty is where growth happens. It's not about entertainment. It's about discipline. It's not about stimulation. It's about concentration. It's not about what captures your attention. It's about what deserves your attention. That's the key. The future you want already requires focus. The business requires focus. The health requires focus. The financial freedom requires focus. The transformation requires focus. Everything meaningful requires attention, and attention is limited. That means every distraction carries a hidden cost. A cost measured in lost opportunities, lost progress, lost potential. Do not ignore that cost. You don't need more time. You need more focus. Most people already have enough time. What they lack is concentration. What they lack is discipline. What they lack is the willingness to protect what matters. You can be different. You can become the person who guards their attention, the person who values focus, the person who refuses to be distracted from their mission. Because focus creates consistency. Consistency creates momentum. Momentum creates results, and results create success. What you focus on grows. Never forget that. Your future is growing in the direction of your attention. Choose that direction carefully, because consistency cannot survive in a distracted mind, and consistency is the hidden law that has guided every chapter of this audiobook. Now we arrive at the final lesson, the lesson that ties everything together, the lesson that reveals why ordinary people achieve extraordinary success, the lesson that explains why consistency defeats talent, motivation, luck, and circumstance. Chapter 10. The Hidden Law of Extraordinary Success. We have reached the final chapter, and now it is time to bring everything together. Every lesson, every principle, every truth, because there is one hidden law connecting all of them. One law that explains why ordinary people achieve extraordinary success. One law that explains why some people transform their lives while others remain stuck. One law that quietly operates beneath every achievement you admire. That law is consistency. That's the key. Not talent, not luck, not timing, not intelligence. Consistency. The willingness to continue. The willingness to repeat. The willingness to stay in the game long after everyone else has left. That is the hidden law of extraordinary success. And once you truly understand it, your entire perspective changes. Think back to everything we have discussed. Talent is overrated. Feelings are unreliable. Small actions compound. Intensity burns out. Systems create consistency. Finish what you start. Master repetition. Ignore the need for immediate results. Protect your focus. Every chapter pointed to the same conclusion. Consistency wins. Again and again. Consistency wins. That is the lesson. That is the principle. That is the truth. Most people spend their lives searching for a breakthrough moment. One opportunity. One connection. One lucky break. One life-changing event. They imagine success as a dramatic transformation. A single moment where everything changes. But success rarely works that way. The reality is much less exciting and much more powerful. Success is usually built through thousands of repeated actions, thousands of decisions, thousands of small disciplines, thousands of moments when someone chose to continue. That's the key. Success is not a breakthrough moment. Success is a compounding process. Imagine a bricklayer building a wall. One brick seems insignificant. 2 bricks seem insignificant. 10 bricks seem insignificant. But eventually, a wall appears. Not because of one extraordinary brick, because of repeated action. That is how success works. One workout, one page, one conversation, one decision, one habit, repeated consistently, until the result becomes impossible to ignore. You have a choice. You can continue searching for shortcuts, or you can commit to the process. One creates disappointment, the other creates results, and the process is available to everyone. That is what makes consistency so powerful. Talent is limited. Consistency is available. Luck is unpredictable. Consistency is available. Perfect circumstances are rare. Consistency is available. No matter where you start, no matter what obstacles you face, no matter what advantages others may have, consistency remains available. every single day. That is why it defeats so many other factors, because consistency compounds, and compounding is one of the most powerful forces in existence. The problem is that most people never stay long enough to experience it. They quit too soon. They become discouraged too soon. They become distracted too soon. They become impatient too soon. And every time they quit, they restart the process again and again and again. Meanwhile, someone else keeps going. Someone else keeps showing up. Someone else keeps repeating. Someone else keeps building. And eventually, that person wins. Not because they were superior, because they stayed. That's the hidden law. The truly successful person is often the person who simply stayed in the game longer than everyone else. Read that again in your mind. The truly successful person is often the person who simply stayed in the game longer than everyone else. This is why consistency is so difficult to appreciate. It looks ordinary. It looks simple. It looks boring. There is nothing dramatic about showing up. There is nothing exciting about repetition. There is nothing glamorous about discipline. But those ordinary actions create extraordinary outcomes. That's the key. Greatness is often disguised as consistency. People see the result. They do not see the years behind it. They see the successful company. They do not see the thousands of days of effort. They see the strong body. They do not see the years of training. They see the wealth. They do not see the years of disciplined decisions. They see the achievement. They do not see the consistency. But you see it now. You understand what most people miss. You understand that success is built long before it becomes visible. You understand that repetition creates mastery. You understand that patience creates opportunity. You understand that focus creates momentum. You understand that systems create discipline. And most importantly, you understand that consistency creates success. You don't need their permission. You do not need someone else's approval. You do not need ideal conditions. You do not need endless motivation. You need consistency. That is enough, because consistency eventually solves problems that talent cannot solve. Consistency eventually creates opportunities that luck cannot create. Consistency eventually builds confidence that motivation cannot provide. Consistency eventually produces results that excuses can never produce. That's the key. Consistency is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Every day you cross that bridge, one action at a time, one decision at a time, one habit at a time. The process is simple, not easy, but simple. Show up. Do the work. Repeat. Again tomorrow. Again next week. Again next month. Again next year. That is how extraordinary success is built. Not through dramatic effort, through repeated effort, not through occasional action, through consistent action, not through bursts of motivation, through disciplined repetition. You have a choice. Every day, every morning, every moment. You can choose comfort, or you can choose growth. You can choose excuses, or you can choose action. You can choose distraction, or you can choose focus. You can choose inconsistency, or you can choose discipline. The decision is always yours, and those decisions eventually become your future. That is the hidden law. The future is not created by what you intend to do. The future is created by what you repeatedly do. Think about that. Most people judge themselves by intentions. Life judges them by actions. Most people celebrate plans. Life rewards execution. Most people admire potential. Life rewards consistency. That's the key. Potential means nothing without repetition. Talent means nothing without discipline. Dreams mean nothing without action. Everything returns to consistency. everything. Which brings us to the final truth. The truth that has echoed through every chapter of this audiobook. The truth that explains why ordinary people achieve extraordinary results. The truth that can transform your life if you choose to live by it. Talent starts the race. Consistency wins it. Remember that. When motivation disappears, talent starts the race. Consistency wins it. When progress feels invisible, talent starts the race. Consistency wins it. When distractions appear, talent starts the race. Consistency wins it. When others quit, talent starts the race. Consistency wins it. When the journey becomes difficult, talent starts the race. Consistency wins it. That is the hidden law of extraordinary success. And now you know it. The question is simple. Will you live it? Because knowledge changes nothing. Action changes everything. The next chapter is not in this audiobook. The next chapter is your life. And beginning today, you have a choice. Show up, stay consistent, keep going, and let time do the rest. Talent starts the race. Consistency wins it. Now you understand the hidden law. Success is not about being the smartest. It is not about being the most talented. It is not about having the perfect plan, the perfect opportunity, or the perfect circumstances. Success belongs to the person who keeps going. The person who works when motivation disappears. The person who shows up when nobody is watching. The person who repeats the fundamentals long after everyone else becomes distracted. Remember this. Talent can impress people. Consistency changes lives. Talent can create attention. Consistency creates results. Talent may open a door. Consistency keeps it open. Years from now, your future will not be determined by what you intended to do. It will be determined by what you repeatedly did. So make a decision today. Choose one habit, choose one goal, choose one commitment, and then show up tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. No excuses, no waiting, no stopping, because extraordinary success is not reserved for extraordinary people. It belongs to ordinary people who refuse to quit. The challenge is simple. For the next 30 days, prove that consistency is stronger than your excuses. Start today.